Good afternoon, my fellow Americans. It is Mike Overson here with Luminate Bank, coming to you live with another episode of U.S. Home Talk. We are live every Wednesday, noon Central Standard Time, coming to you live from just south of Minneapolis, Minnesota here, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, talking about mortgage, real estate, all that fun stuff, the current events, the news that's out there. With me today, as always, are my two partners in crime here. We got Jason Walgrave, Walgrave Real Estate Group with RE/MAX Advantage Plus, and we got Marcus Walgrave, South Dakota Home Team, Hague Realtors, taking your questions and answering your questions live on air today and throughout the week. So the best way to get a hold of us throughout the week is going to be our website, ushometalk.com. You can connect with us, you can ask questions. Tons of reports on buying, selling, all that fun stuff there. And then you can also get a hold of us on our real estate hotline. Scrolling there on the bottom, you can see the hotline number is 612-234-7585. Again, 612-234-7585. You can call us or text us during the show on that number to interact with us live. Or if you're on Facebook, you can go watch us live there and type in your comments or questions, and we'll answer them live during the show too. Okay. Topic for today, right? We usually pick a topic each week. Topic for today, and the reason why I picked this topic is because I know we're all seeing it right now, right? We're all seeing it. How, if you're a home buyer, how can home buyers get their offer accepted in this type of market? Okay,
It's a great topic.
It's a very, very timely topic here for us to talk about because we're all seeing it, and so then we want to help our listeners and help our buyers out there win in those multiple offer type of situations. So, fellas, going to be popping off a lot of questions to you guys. We're going to be testing your knowledge today. You're going to pull out your tips and your tricks, right? You're going to pull out your flea flickers. You're going to pull out your Hail Marys today, right? And we're going to see if we can help some of these home buyers out there get their offer accepted. So first of all, let's talk about this for both of you here. Like, what type of percentage of your buyers are dealing with multiple offer situations?
Well, that's a great question. I think it has a lot to do with price point and neighborhood, right? And because we already know inventory as a whole is down, and it's been down for a number of years, and so there's low inventory. But there's some neighborhoods that have incredibly low inventory, and if that price point is in that range where the most buyers are, then it's even a higher likelihood. But I mean, we're seeing, if a home is priced under 500 and it's priced right and it's a great house and a great neighborhood, you're probably going to have multiple offers. You're probably going to be in a multiple offer situation. With that said, we also see multiple offers in $900,000 price ranges as well. And so it is, when you have low inventory across the board, it can happen. It can happen in any price range. But there's a few neighborhoods where there's only one or two homes, per quarter that come up for sale. And so, that's going to have a higher likelihood of multiple offers. But there's a lot of multiple offers going on right now. There's no question about it. You got to be prepared. Mike's going to go through a list of things that can help you out. But most importantly, if you're a buyer, you need to align yourself with a top real estate agent or team that has experience in winning multiple offers and winning in a multiple offer situation. And the lender is a part of that team. And so, Mike, I'm sure you're going to share some of your success stories over the last couple of weeks where, your buyers are getting offers accepted, and they weren't even the highest offer. They weren't even the highest offered dollar amount, but they got accepted because they had a great real estate agent, top agent, and they've got you on the lending side. And so, buyers, you got to align yourself with the best in your market that has the experience and the knowledge and the skill to win in multiple offers.
Marcus, what are you seeing down there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota? It's hot up here. I'd say probably 90% of the buyers that I'm working with right now, when they make an offer, they're competing against probably at least 3 or 4 other offers, if not 8, 9, 10 offers right now. What are you seeing down there in Sioux Falls?
Yeah, it definitely price. Just like Jason said, a lot of price is going to play a big factor into it, and also location. In our market, it's interesting, right? I don't know if you guys have seen this up there in the Twin Cities, but because we have such low inventory, not all the homes are hitting the market at a fair price. There are a lot of properties that are coming out there that are simply just way overpriced. And even with this low inventory, buyers aren't, chomping at the bits for grossly overpriced properties. And so, when we see one in our market, very similar to what Jason was describing as well, under 500, if you're kind of comparing apples to apples, a $500,000 house from the Twin Cities area might be like a $450,000 house down here in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the Sioux Empire market. So, a little bit of a difference in valuation from up there to down here. But yeah, I mean, it's if it's priced right, it doesn't really matter even if it's $1 million home. There is a lot of buyers out there that are looking to move to our areas, and generates a lot of activity. And to your point exactly, Mike, a lot of multiple offers in a lot of cases. And so, it's if it's priced right, it's going to see a lot of interest for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. All right, we're gonna start hitting this list here then. So these are some strategies and some ways as you as a home buyer you can go get out there and compete in a multiple market situation or multiple offer situation, and get your offer accepted, right? This is how you can stick out. So the number one thing, and I have a couple comments on this too, but typically the number one thing is offer a price that's higher than anyone else, right? Or offer a price that is going to catch the eye of the seller. And now some people are going to be like, well, you guys always say that. It just seems like you guys just want me to spend more money on it, right? But think of it from the seller side of perspective. If you got a bunch of offers out there, right, and you're the seller of this situation, you're looking at it, what's going to catch your eye, right? What's going to be the first thing that catches your eye? How much are they going to offer me, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's typically one of the most important things to look at.
And there's a lot of strategies to offering. I mean, you don't just say, okay, well, let's just pull a number out of the hat and throw it out there. I mean, if you're working with an experienced realtor, they're going to be able to say, hey, let's try to offer the top dollar and also minimize the amount of overpaying to beat the second best offer out there. So there's a lot of really good strategies that an experienced realtor can provide their client with. So then, you can maybe win this offer, this bidding war, and maybe only have to go over $1,000-$2,000 more than the second best. I think that the idea of like offering the highest price, it's just like, okay, we got to blow everybody's doors off and go 10, 20 grand over the next best person out there. It's like, well, that's not necessarily the case. Does it happen? I'm sure it does, and you kind of feel unfortunate for that buyer, but if you got the right people working for you, you should be able to outbid number two and do it by a minimal amount of money.
Yeah, I think price is one of the most important. There are sellers out there that are simply net driven, right? They are going to make their decision based on which offer is going to net me the most amount of money. That's what's most important. But that's not all sellers. That's not all sellers. I mean, some sellers are more, what's more important to them is likelihood of closing, likelihood of the deal closing. And so do you have things like appraisal gaps in the offer? Do you have a lender that you are confident is going to close the deal? A lender that says, this buyer's pre-approved, and that means it's going to close. Is there a lender guarantee? Does the lender on the buyer's side, do they have a guarantee that it's going to close? And if it doesn't, what does that mean? So, we do a summary sheet with all of our offers, and so we like to package up our deals. So we've got the pre-approval letter, and we've got the offer, and we've got all of the supplements, and we package that all into one PDF. And the first page of that, the cover letter on that PDF, is the offer summary. It's a one-page sheet. It's the 8 or 9 main points of the offer. An agent can look at it and go, okay. They can forward that to their seller. The seller can look at the one page and go, okay, I know what this offer is. And so making sure that, oh man, I can't tell you how many times on when we have properties listed, we get offers, and it's from an agent that they send an email. Sometimes they don't even call, which just blows my mind. I'll get an email with an offer. Please see attached offer. And there's 7 attachments. There's a purchase agreement attachment, a pre-approval letter attachment, and an arbitration attachment. And it's just like with no summary. And so, whenever I get those, I'm like, oh, this one's going to be harder to work with.
Right. Yeah. Like ease of transaction, right, is one of those things that a seller and more often the listing agent, right? Because the listing agent is their, that's their advisor through this whole thing. And so a seller's going to, have an offer come in, and let's say the offer that comes in is like a 7 attachment deal, right? It's got 7 attachments, purchase agreement, and then there's this arbitration thing over here. I don't know what that is, but that was on there. And then I have this over here. Like a normal seller is probably not going to be able to pick through that, right? And be able to decipher, like, okay, well, what's the meat and potatoes of this offer? Like, what's it saying to me, right? Yes. Yeah, and so like, and one of the things I put on the list here today was choose your agent wisely, right? And one of the things that I brought up was, are they well known and are they respected in your market, right?
Yep.
Do they offer? Do they use an offer summary sheet like Jason was just talking about? Do they summarize the offer, right, to make it easy for the listing agent and the seller to say, okay, here's what they're going to net me. Here's what I have for an inspection. Do they have a property to sell? You hit the high points right there, so they can get a good feel for the offer without having to pick through and like do a bunch of work trying to figure out what type of offer you're making. And then the third point I made too was, do they even know how to fill out a purchase agreement correctly?
Oh, good grief! Some don't. Right? I mean, literally, some don't. They, and that's, you get that, and you're like, whew, and now your listing agent, folks. Now look. The listing agent's job is to clearly explain and present the offer to the seller, and so but there's indications on how that offer is originally delivered to the listing agent that will kind of give you hints on what it's going to be like working with the agent and the buyer and the lender, and the more clear it is from the beginning, it gives a stronger feeling from the seller and the listing agent that, look, this is a solid buyer and it's a solid agent and a solid lender. And so we have less concerns or worries that it's, that's going to fall through, or it's going to happen, or something's going to fall through the cracks because they weren't paying attention, or like you said, Mike, they didn't fill the purchase agreement out right. I mean, holy smokes, that's not a good first impression, guys, when you get the purchase agreement not filled out correctly.
Right. Dead giveaway right there. Dead giveaway. Listing agent pulls up this purchase agreement. It's like, well, that wasn't filled out correctly. That wasn't filled out. It's clear that this buyer's agent doesn't know what they're doing.
All right.
The amount of work that it's going to take to get this thing to closing is going to be more than these other offers, because this guy doesn't even know how to fill out, or gal doesn't even know how to fill out the purchase agreement correctly, right? That's the initial, right? That's your first impression of.
It's first impression.
It's going to be this is going to be difficult. That's what they're thinking.
The ultimate goal is not to get acceptable offers. It is to close on your property with an acceptable offer. So, there are several hurdles that you need to overcome once an offer is accepted. And a lot of work that happens behind the scenes transpires after that offer is accepted. So, you guys make good points.
Let's talk about inspections. Mm-hmm. Right, because that's one thing too that I know that a lot of these offers will waive an inspection, right? So that a home inspection, so that there's one less hurdle, if you will, that when the seller's looking at the offer to say, okay, they're waiving their inspection, I don't have to worry about something popping up in the inspection and some sort of renegotiation or something like that. What's your guys' thoughts on, how effective is waiving an inspection, and then how do you kind of like address that with your different buyers?
Yeah, I think it depends on the property. It depends on the buyer, right? I mean, there's some properties, if it's, the newer it is, the less you're worried about, having the inspection. We always recommend it. Buyers, would you recommend having an inspection? Answer's always yes. But then they ask, well, when we're in multiple offer situations, what I do for my buyers is I say, look, I recommend you making the best offer that you're comfortable making. And if that offer wins, then great. And if it doesn't, we'll go find another property. That's fine. I'm also going to tell you what I think your offer needs to be to win the offer. Doesn't mean you got to go with it. I'm just going to give you the information. I don't want you to make that offer. I want you to make the offer that you're most comfortable making. But things like inspections, I mean, I don't know, probably industry standard, if you're not in multiple offers, somewhere between 5 and 7 days to do that inspection. I mean, we have relationships with inspectors. One guy in particular, Zach, I mean, he can get in usually within a day. I mean, he will go out of his way to get an inspection done within a day. Well, if you're a seller, you've got a great offer. The terms are good. The price is good. Closing date is what you want. Everything looks good. It's a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 house, and that buyer's asking for a 1-day inspection. Are you not going to take that offer? No, I don't think a seller. If you go back to COVID, 21, end of 20, 21, a little bit of 22, sellers are like, don't even put an inspection there. I'm not going to take the offer. But, right. but I think most sellers are very reasonable, and they kind of put their self in the buyer's shoes. And it's like, man, if I'm going to spend $500,000, I want to make sure that there's nothing major wrong with the property. Now, you can do an inspection and you can put it in there. Hey, we're going to do an inspection within 1 or 2 days. Anything under $10,000, we're not even going to ask for, right? Or $5,000 or whatever the number is. So you can ease the potential anxiety that the seller has from the inspection by just saying, look, only looking for major stuff. If it's $5,000 or less, we're good, or $10,000 or less, or whatever that number is. I really think that most sellers are going to say, yeah, not worried about the inspection, especially if it's if you got a dollar amount, or as long as it's, not above a certain number, go for it. We would want the same opportunity. We don't expect you to spend $500,000 and not feel certain that, the foundation's going to fall over or whatever. So.
Yeah, to put a dollar amount on something like that, like Jason was saying, it's so specific to the property. So specific to the property. If the home is like 2-3 years old, and your offer is not contingent upon an inspection, property inspection, but it's $5,000 less than the next offer, a seller's going to look at that and be like, well, I don't have, it's 2-year-old house. I'm not too concerned about, right. I'm not valuing that property inspection at $5,000 like this buyer is. So, understanding really what it value could have, having that experienced realtor who obviously went and saw the house with you and is able to come up with, some basic, general dollar amounts for maybe some big ticket items that are out there. Then it all of a sudden it kind of creates a dollar amount for that, inspection, contingency.
Yep. Hey, Evan, I'm just going to jump in here. I do want to do a legal minute at some point today. I'm not going to forget. So you just let me know when we want to do that.
How about right now?
Let's do it. Legal minute, Jeff O'Brien, baby. Here we go. That's too soon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's too soon.
This is Jeff O'Brien. attorney with Hush Blackwell with the U.S. Home Talk Legal Minute. Under Minnesota law, a mineral estate may be severed from and exist as a fee interest independent of a surface estate. In 1969, Minnesota enacted the Severed Mineral Interest Law, which requires the owners of severed mineral interest to register their interest by filing a severed mineral interest statement with the Office of the County Recorder, or, if registered property, Register of Title's office of the county in which the interests are located. Mineral interests are taxed at the rate of 40 cents per acre or portion of an acre. For fractional undivided mineral interest, the tax per acre or portion thereof is multiplied by the particular fractional interest. The minimum annual tax on any mineral interest is $3.20. If the mineral interest owner does not file the severed mineral interest statement within the time deadline provided by law, the mineral interest will forfeit to the state after notice and opportunity for a hearing. The mineral estate is considered the dominant estate because if the surface estate was considered dominant, the surface interest owner could make any improvements without regard to the mineral estate and thereby render the mineral estate valueless. For questions about mineral interests and mineral rights under Minnesota law, contact a knowledgeable real estate attorney. This is Jeff O'Brien, attorney with Hush Blackwell with the U.S. Home Talk Legal Minute.
Nice.
Bam. Not gonna lie, a lot of that was over my head. Most of the stuff that he talks about in these legal minutes, I can follow. That
one was over my head too.
That one was a little out there. That was going deep.
I was feeling like that's more relevant in like Dickinson, North Dakota or something.
Could be. Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Thank you, Jeff O'Brien.
But again, Jeff, here's how I view that, right? If you're that good at legal real estate stuff, and you can confuse me on those things, you obviously must know what you're talking about. Because I feel like I can follow most of those things. That one was over my head. And I'll just take your word for it, Jeff. Thanks. Appreciate that.
If you got questions about mineral rights, you know who to reach out to.
Yes.
Jeff O'Brien. Absolutely. All right, going back to our topic here. You're a home buyer. You're out there trying to buy a house. You're in multiple offer situation. How do you get your offer accepted? We've been talking about offering a higher price, waiving inspections, choosing your real estate agent wisely, right? That's a big one there. There's a lot that goes along with how to write the offer and how to submit the offer to the seller, the listing agent, things like that. Let's go to being flexible on close date, right? Some people might think that's a small deal. I see being flexible on close date to be more valuable than what I guess most buyers might realize it's worth, depending on the seller's situation, of course. But I think that's actually can be pretty big. What's your comment on that?
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, especially if the seller, two different examples. One, maybe the seller's already identified the property they're going to buy. They got a closing date set up. That closing date is very important. Other example would be is they haven't found the property they're going to buy. They're going to move. That decision has been made, but maybe they need 60 days instead of 30, or maybe they need 90 days, or maybe it's an on or before 90 days type of deal. I mean, that without any question, I've seen deals accepted with a lower price, but a closing date that was more accommodating to what the sellers needed. And so closing date is so important. If you're a buyer's agent, you got to ask that question. You got to find out from the listing agent, when would the seller, that's one of the first questions I ask, when would the seller like to close? Is there any other offers? Are we in multiple offers? And then what other terms are important to your seller? And maybe a seller comes back and says, yeah, we know this isn't really industry standard as far as possession date, but the seller would be incredibly grateful if you could give them 24 hours to move out, it's just, you think, because that's the way it used to be. If you go back 15 years, the purchase agreements weren't immediate possession. They were 24 hours. I mean, that was industry standard. So you got to ask the questions to the listing agent, find out what's important to the seller. Closing date, that could be the determining reason right there. Everything else that looks good, similar to the offers, closing date's the one they want, they're going to take that offer.
Yeah, maybe the seller's building a house, right? And the builder's like, well, I think I'll have the house done in this date. But we all know how that goes, right?
Yep.
Can't control the weather. What happens if we get 3 weeks of straight rain?
Yeah.
Right? That close date's getting pushed back for sure, right?
Yep.
And no one has control over that. So, again, knowing the seller's situation, being flexible with what the seller's looking for there can be huge.
We had two last year, that situation, Mike, where both sellers were building. One of them we sold off market. But that was the most important thing. He's like, look, I can't close for 5 months, and the buyer's like, I can accommodate that. We had another one. It was 7 months. I don't want to close until my house is done. Buyer's like, fine, I'll wait, and so it is, it's a really important, one of the top, I think, important pieces to making a really good offer is finding out what the seller wants for a closing date.
Last one that we're going to hit for today, right? Contingent upon the sale of another property. Okay. So, so we all know that making a non-contingent offer to a seller is definitely worth way more in the seller's eyes as far as accepting an offer that's contingent upon your current house selling. So we all know that. What do you guys, I'm more curious on your guys' thoughts on, let's say you have a buyer that can go non-contingent, right? So they can buy the next house without being contingent on the sale of their current house, but they would much rather sell their current house first so they have those proceeds and this and that, and so they don't have to make potentially 2 house payments, for a couple months, whatever the case may be. How do you guys handle that? And they come to you and say, look, we would like to make a contingent offer first, but if we need to go non-contingent, then we can go non-contingent.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first question is are we in multiple offers? Because that changes the answer to that. I think a seller, the more information you can give the listing agent and the seller about the subject property, the contingent property, is really important. So I want to see, I'm a listing agent, I want to see a full CMA on the house they need to sell. I want to see the comps. I want to see the average days on market, the average time it takes to close. And then I want to know what you're going to list the property at. What's the price? And if you've got the contingent house, it's in a 400 neighborhood and the comps all say 400 and you want to list it at 415, don't think I want to take that offer. And where if you're like, hey, we're going to list it at market value, here's the stats. We got, these homes are selling within a week. That I'm not too concerned about, and if you are a buyer that is just like, I want to be contingent, you're going to have to pay more for it, right? You're going to have to pay a premium. You're going to have to pay more than the non-contingent offer. But as a seller, am I going to take a contingent offer that's $5,000 higher? Well, I will if I'm confident it's going to sell, and that's based on what it's listed at, based on what the CMA says. So I don't think contingent offers are absolute deal killers. I mean, obviously it's better to be non-contingent, but there's ways to work around that, being strategic, making other terms of the offer better or making up for that contingency.
Yeah, seeing that CMA is always an interesting thing too, because it gives you a good idea. Again, I mean, if the realtor's already very reputable, then you'll see the CMA and you'll be like, yeah, that's obviously spot on. But there's a lot of really good agents out there that are new in their career. They might only have a couple years of experience or 2, 3, whatever it might be. But seeing their CMA and saying, okay, the 3 comps that you pulled, I mean, those were some incredibly impressive comps, and this is a very nice house, yes, but not quite to the level of those 3. So yes, I see your CMA says it's worth $415, but from my experiences and what I'm seeing in the CMA, you maybe we're really juicing those comps with that CMA report too, and I think it kind of goes into it too when you talk about like where we at with the listing contract. Jason, you talked about what are you guys going to list it at? Well, we haven't had that discussion yet. Okay, well, if you haven't had the discussion yet, it's not listed. If it's not listed, then we probably don't have a CMA done. If we don't have a CMA done, probably having a consultation meeting done. When is this buyer's property even going to hit the market? Right. Are we talking, is this going to be 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month before we can get everything going? So a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts with that contingency thing, right? And it's one of those things again where it's like, choose your agent wisely, right? Choose your agent wisely, choose your lender wisely, right? Luminate, we have a particular program where for a flat fee of $2,500, we can take a contingent buyer and make them non-contingent, right? Pretty low cost, right? To put yourself in that much better of a position as a buyer, right? To be able to go in non-contingent. So, yeah. So it's just, again, and we have like 13 more other things we could talk about on this topic, but we're going to wrap it up for today. Yeah.
Should we cover them?
Should we just go
Maybe
down the
we
list?
should cover them here
Should we
today.
make this our 2-hour show today? But the point is,
Oh, we got the outro music.
point is that just connect yourself with the right agent, the right loan officer, the right team around you. They will help you be successful as a buyer in this crazy market. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week with another show, Wednesdays, noon Central Standard Time. This is US Home Talk. Thanks for watching.